In this episode, we share details on the official end of the SAVE Repayment Plan and what comes next for your federal student loan journey. Let's get started.
Let's get some money.
From New Money, New Problems, it's the New Money, New Problems podcast, a show for successful professionals searching for the tools they need to navigate financial opportunities and obstacles they've never seen. Negotiating compensation, purchasing your first investment property, helping your family with money, the highs and lows of entrepreneurship. New Money brings new problems that require new solutions. Join us as we work through them together. I'm Brenton Harrison, and this is the New Money, New Problems podcast.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode. I hope you are having a good holiday season so far. Whether you're in our New Money, New Problems audience or our Escape Student Loan Debt community, this is one of those days where the news that impacts one audience impacts the other. And as a result, we are releasing this episode on both platforms today. The reason that this is so important is because we know that in both camps, no matter which you fall, there are plenty of people or many who listen who are currently on forbearance for the Saving on a Valuable Education Plan. If you've listened to our past episodes on student loans, we're not going to go through a full recap of how this forbearance came to be, but I would say that there are people out there who signed up for these plans with every intention of repaying their student loans, and when forbearance came to be, they said, I'm going to stay put until there's another option available because I can't afford the other ones that have been presented to me, or maybe I'm holding out hope that the SAVE plan will eventually be reinstituted. So there's definitely people who that was like the genesis or the main reason for their decision. There are also people we know and come across where they intentionally got onto the SAVE plan because of the forbearance, knowing that it was going to be a potentially long time where they wouldn't have to make payments. And this was also a better alternative than being stuck or remaining on a payment plan that they could not afford. And then lastly, there's a camp of people, a very small subset, but still important subset as it pertains to this episode and the timeliness of it. Whereas we've transitioned from the Biden administration to the Trump administration, the Education Department has been unclear as to the amount of credits that these people have towards forgiveness under Income Driven Repayment plans. They haven't given them consistent updates. They've implied that they could potentially have credits that they've already been given rescinded. And as a result, these people who may have already crossed the threshold of being eligible for forgiveness, but for some reason it hasn't been processed, they have sat in the SAVE plan, the thought being, I'm going to stay here until I have more clarity, and then when I can get my payment or forgiveness credits verified, then I'll try to take steps to have it formally forgiven. But until I receive that clarity, I'm going to stand still in the SAVE plan. And really, while your action and the next steps that you take may change as a result of this news, depending on your reason or rationale for still being in SAVE, the news remains the same for all parties, and that is that a couple of weeks ago, the Education Department released a settlement in conjunction with the GOP-led states that initially challenged the SAVE plan that formally killed the plan. They said that they've agreed as a result of the litigation to formally remove the SAVE plan from the available options for income-driven repayment plans, and that they are going to phase it out. And while they did not give an official date, the implication or the expectation is that sometime over the next couple of months, SAVE will be officially finished. And while that is terrible news, and it's going to be the subject of the rest of this episode, before we get into what comes next, I do want to read from the settlement a sentence that does provide like a small sliver of relief for people as it pertains to their forgiveness credits towards income-driven repayment. If you're looking on screen, I'm reading from a Forbes article that summarizes the settlement. We'll put the link to this article in the show notes. It says, and I quote, "The SAVE plan final rule, i.e. the final rule published on July 10th, 2023, will be vacated," reads the agreement, "with one exception that allows certain deferment and forbearance periods to count towards student loan forgiveness under income-driven repayment plans," end quote. Now, if you don't understand what that means, let me give you a quick recap. When the Biden administration started doing their review of public service loan forgiveness credit and income-driven repayment plan credit, one of the things that they highlighted was when it comes to federal student loans, you are not supposed to be in forbearance for longer than 12 months consecutively or 36 months cumulatively. But But in reviewing past records, they found a large percentage of borrowers were offered the opportunity to be in forbearance or deferment extending beyond those available periods. And the argument that that era of the Department of Education made was that's not the borrower's fault, right? If you're only supposed to be allowed to be on forbearance for 12 months in a row and your loan servicer lets you be on it for 20 months straight, that shouldn't be the fault of the borrower. The student loan servicer is the one who should have internal systems that should have stopped that from taking place. And what they did was they said that for periods that extended beyond 12 months consecutively and 36 months cumulatively, they were going to treat those excess months as credited towards forgiveness. The example being, if we go back to, hey, I was supposed to be 12 months in a row, they let me do it for 20 months. In that scenario, months 13 through 20 would have been counted towards forgiveness, even though technically the borrower never paid. If it were 36 months cumulatively and you were allowed to be in forbearance for 45 months, then months 37 through 45 in that example would be counted towards forgiveness. Now, as a result of this litigation, one of the things that the Department of Education has not made clear was whether or not they were going to honor that stance on deferment and forbearance. As a matter of fact, every implication was that they were going back to the rules before that change, which said that you just don't get credit for those periods. It doesn't matter how long you were in forbearance. So again, while there's mostly bad news in this episode, I would say that a small sliver of relief for people who are trying to get an accurate count on their forgiveness credits is that if you had those credits added to your account during the Biden era, you now no longer have to worry about those credits being rescinded, which is something that we thought was a distinct possibility until the Department of Education gave a formal statement on how they were treating those excess periods. But now let's get into what comes next for the people who are on SAVE and are wondering what they should do. And I'm going to give my potential options. I don't want to give a recommendation, but I'm going to give my potential options based on the other income-driven repayment plans to which you have access. And we're going to start with people who are only eligible for the old version of income-based repayment. If you're looking on screen, you're looking at our Escape Student Loan Debt Guide to Income-Driven Repayment Plans. We will also put a link to this in the show notes, but you can download it at escapestudentloandebt.com/guide. There's a calculator in this guide. If you have downloaded an older version, I would highly encourage you to click this link again because we use a template for these calculators and we update that template whenever there's a change that's issued by the Department of Education. So we've made some recent changes to this as a result of them changing the criteria for the income-based repayment plan and removing the hardship requirement. So if you downloaded this guide a few months ago and you think, oh, I already have it, I would definitely encourage you to download the new version of the template. That said, there's also a category that tells you the eligibility for each of the income-driven repayment plans. You will see that under old income-based repayment, to be eligible, you have to have direct or FFEL loans, and you have to have an outstanding loan balance before July 1st, 2014. Now, the thing about the old version of income-based repayment plan is it is the highest payment and the longest repayment period for the plans that are available now that anyone would choose, right? Technically, there's a plan called income contingent repayment that would have a higher payment, but really, of the ones that any sensible person would choose, old IBR is the plan that's on that list, but also the worst plan. It requires you to pay 15% of your discretionary income towards your federal student loans each year, and you pay for 25 years until any remaining balances are forgiven. So if you are currently on SAVE forbearance and the only plan that you have access to outside of SAVE is old IBR, understandably, you're probably not in a rush to move on to that plan. And what I would say is you might consider riding this out. And if it takes 2 months to cancel SAVE, 3 months to cancel SAVE, that could be an additional period of time where you have some relief from your federal student loan payment. Because what the department has said is when the SAVE plan is formally canceled, they and your loan servicer are going to automatically put you into a different income-driven repayment plan. Now, they eventually are going to release a new repayment plan called the Repayment Assistance Plan. But if they move you off of SAVE before that plan is created, and the only other plan for which you're eligible is old IBR, then obviously they're going to force you onto old IBR. And if that's not something you're in a rush to do, then maybe you do give yourself that opportunity opportunity to just ride this thing out and see how long it lasts. So there's not much action to take in that scenario. It's more of an understanding and an acceptance that eventually you might be going from SAVE forbearance to a plan that has a significantly higher payment. We'll talk about what that payment actually would be in a second. The second camp that I would bring up, and this is the one where I would encourage you to move sooner than later and not to wait until you're forced off the plan. Those would be people who are eligible for old IBR, but they are also eligible for the pay-as-you-earn plan. Let's go back to the guide. We've already walked through the eligibility of old IBR. Now we're looking at the pay-as-you-earn plan. To be eligible for the pay-as-you-earn plan, you can only have direct loans, and you have to be a new borrower as of October 1st, 2007. So that means you either took out your first federal student loan on or after October 1st, 2007, or you had student loans before that date, paid them off in full, and then took out another loan on or after 2007. And then the last requirement for pay-as-you-earn eligibility is you have to have also taken out a new loan on or after October 1st, 2011. So October 1st, 2007 and then October 1st, 2011 are the 2 dates to keep in mind in that scenario. The benefit to the pay-as-you-earn plan is as compared to old IBR, pay-as-you-earn requires you to pay 10% of your discretionary income instead of 15% and forgives remaining loan balances after 20 years of payments as compared to the 25 required under old IBR. Now, why does this group potentially need to move faster and not wait for SAVE to cancel itself? Well, it has to do with plans that exist now that will not exist after 2028. So going back to some of our previous episodes, and I would encourage you to dig deep in the Escape Student Loan Debt Vault if you're not familiar, the IDR plans that are currently available are the old and new versions of income-based repayment, the pay-as-you-earn plan, and the income contingent repayment plan. Now, sometime in the spring or middle of next year, there will be a new plan that's created and introduced called the Repayment Assistance Plan, but the department has also shared that sometime between now and the middle of 2028, they're going to remove the ICR plan and also the pay-as-you-earn plan. So eventually we will be moving towards a system where the only plans under that income-driven repayment plan umbrella are old IBR, new IBR, and the repayment assistance plan. So if you're thinking logically, and the department has said that when the SAVE plan ends, if you haven't taken action, they're going to put you in an income-driven repayment plan, logic would tell me that they're unlikely to put you into a payment plan that they know is going to be removed from the available options over the course of the next 2 years. But if you're eligible for pay-as-you-earn now, it represents an opportunity as long as you have that plan available to take advantage of a 5% lower payment and 5 years less on the repayment history. If your loans are due to be forgiven sometime before 2028, maybe you sneak in under that umbrella, but you have to do that yourself because I find it unlikely for them to end the SAVE plan and then move you onto a plan that they know you're going to eventually have to move from yet again. So if you're eligible for old IBR and pay-as-you-earn, I would tell you to think about moving your loans yourself into pay-as-you-earn now. And if you're wondering just how consequential that decision could be of potentially being eligible for pay-as-you-earn, but instead waiting so long that they put you on the old version of income-based repayment, if you're looking at the calculator for the guide on the screen, we've put a family of 4 with an adjusted gross income of $125,000, and you'll see that under the pay-as-you-earn plan, their monthly payment would be $639.79. Under the old version of income-based repayment, it is over $300 a month higher. It's $959.69, which hopefully gives you some idea of the gravity, because if you wait for the Department of Education, the likelihood, in my opinion, is that they would move you to the old IBR plan instead. And then lastly, let's say that you are eligible for new IBR. Going back to our spreadsheet, you'll see that to be eligible for new IBR, you have to be considered a new borrower on or after July 1st, 2014. So it means that you have to be fairly young or have gone back to school after paying back your previous loans to be eligible for new IBR. Now, the interesting thing about new IBR and pay-as-you-earn is it's the same payment percentage. It's 10% in both scenarios. It's also the same repayment period. It's 20 years in both scenarios. So in reality, of the available options, this kind of ties the pay-as-you-earn plan for the one that is most appealing. But the extra benefit is if you're eligible for new IBR, that is one of the plans that we know is going to exist even beyond the middle of 2028. So unlike the pay-as-you-earn plan, which is a great plan, yet it's going away, if you're eligible for new IBR, you can make that switch with the confidence of knowing that you're unlikely to be switched again. This payment plan is here to stay. This puts you in the unique scenario where if you're trying to get credit towards forgiveness or public service loan forgiveness right now, it might benefit you to move from the SAVE plan onto the new IBR. But if you're on the SAVE plan, eligible for new IBR, and you're still trying to squeeze out as many months of non-payment as possible, it also puts you in an ideal scenario, because if it does take 2 months or 3 months or 4 months or 5 months to kill the SAVE plan, you can wait it out, not make the payments, with the confidence of knowing that even if they force you onto a different plan, it's likely to be the new income-based repayment plan anyways. So I can't answer what's best for your finances, but I can tell you that if you're worried about the prospect of making a payment and you're eligible for that plan, then you have less urgency, in my opinion, than the previous camps that we discussed. That said, there is one group that we have yet to cover which has a lot of urgency, as in next 10 or 11 days urgency, as in if you don't do this before the end of 2025, you could be potentially costing yourself a lot of money urgency. And that is the camp of people we talked about at the beginning of this episode, where they are already eligible for student loan forgiveness and they're just waiting for their credits to be updated, or they're waiting for news that the department has resumed the processing of forgiveness. And until they have that clarity, they are staying on the SAVE plan. That is a very dangerous place to be. Going back a couple of months to the episode we shared about the student loan update in a separate court case, the Department of Education was taken to court by the American Federation of Teachers because they had stopped processing forgiveness under all income-driven repayment plans for not great reasons. And the American Federation of Teachers took them to court and said, this is illegal, you should be processing this forgiveness. And as a result of that court case, the Department of Education agreed to several things with more specificity in terms of how they were going to process forgiveness moving forward. Now, beyond just the reasonable thought of, hey, these people are eligible for forgiveness, you need to process it, there was a real time sensitivity to when they processed forgiveness based on how that forgiveness is or isn't taxed. We've covered this in past episodes, but until the end of 2025, if you have federal student loans that are forgiven under income-driven repayment plans, you do not pay taxes on that forgiveness at the federal level. In most states, that's the case as well when it comes to state taxes, although there are some states out there that tax income-driven repayment plan forgiveness as income in the year of forgiveness. Now, unfortunately, if you have federal student loans forgiven after 2025, then that debt is treated as income in the year it's forgiven. An example would be if you make $50,000 and in 2026 had $75,000 worth of student loans forgiven, then you would have to pay income taxes on $125,000 worth of income. So that's a very serious possibility. And if you have someone who's sitting here in 2025 knowing that they're eligible for forgiveness and the department's not processing it, they're looking and they're saying, hey, if you don't do this before the end of the year, then something that would not have been taxable will now become taxable because of your delay. So as a result of that lawsuit, the department agreed that if you are on any plan other than the SAVE plan, then even if your loans were not forgiven until after 2025, the department would treat your student loans as forgiven in the month that you technically crossed into eligibility. What does that mean? It means that if you met your 20 or 25 year threshold in January of 2025, when that forgiveness wouldn't have been taxable, it wouldn't matter if they didn't actually wipe away the debt until January 2027. You would not pay taxes on it because it would be treated as forgiven in 2025. But remember, that was for borrowers on every plan except the SAVE plan. If you're looking on screen, we're reading from another Forbes article that summarized that settlement. And it says, and I quote, for the defendant's internal purposes, when a borrower, 1, has achieved eligibility under the SAVE plan, 2, applies to transfer to one of the IBR, ICR, or pay-as-you-earn plans on or before December 31st, 2025, and 3, that application is approved on or after January 1st, 2026, the date that the borrower becomes eligible for cancellation under the new plan constitutes the effective date of their loan discharge, even if that date falls on or before the date the borrower's application was approved, end quote. That is a lot to digest, so let me explain what it means. What it means is if you're on the SAVE plan and you're eligible for forgiveness now, they are not going to wipe away your debt under the SAVE plan. You are required to move that debt to either the ICR, IBR, or pay-as-you-earn plans. But the timing of when you do it is very important, because if you do it after December 31st of this year, it doesn't matter. You're going to have that debt be taxable because you left it on the SAVE plan past the deadline for a debt to be forgiven and not be taxed. But if you apply to have that SAVE plan moved to another eligible repayment option, and you do so before December 31st, 2025, what the Department of Education will look at is they'll say, hey, this person, for example, applied to have their debt transferred to this new payment plan on December 19th of 2025. If we looked at their credits towards forgiveness at that date and time, they had crossed the threshold, and under this new plan, they would have been eligible. So now, even if we don't process the application itself until, say, January 7th, the date that they are considered eligible for forgiveness is December 19th, 2025, which comes in before the deadline and as a result is not taxable. So what they're saying is these people who are in this SAVE plan eligible for forgiveness, you have like 10 or 11 more days to switch your plan and not have this forgiveness be taxed. If you're in the small subset of people to which this applies, you need to take steps now, potentially today, to put in that application. Now, when it comes to federal student loan updates, there are several others that will be very relevant in the coming months. We've talked about the mid-year 2026 deadline for Parent Plus borrowers or people who are not yet on Income Driven Repayment plans. We're going to talk about that much more in the coming months. I know this isn't the ideal way to transition into your Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa holiday, finding out that this plan that didn't make you make payments is going away and now your payment could increase substantially. But I would much rather tell you this information while you still have time to act than to let you get through the holiday and tell you on January 2nd when there's not time to do anything. We'll be back in future episodes with hopefully some happier content to bring in the end of this year and the start of 2026, and I hope to see you then.
From New Money, New Problems, this was the New Money, New Problems podcast, a show for successful professionals searching for the tools they need to navigate financial opportunities and obstacles they've never seen.